I've been doing some catching up recently on some of the movies I missed in 2022, and pretty high up on my must-see list was The Northman. This is a film that pretty much across the board everyone seemed to be saying they really loved. I didn't see The Lighthouse, which was the previous film by Robert Eggers, but I did see The Witch. And while that was a film that I thought was brilliantly made, with excellent performances, I didn't like the ending. The ending just totally lost me. The Lighthouse didn't really look all that appealing to me, if I'm being perfectly honest. So The Northman, his third one out the gate. I was a bit dubious going in. It could go either way. I gotta say, I loved this film. In many respects, it's a bit like Avatar, in the sense that it is a tried and tested story that's reasonably formulaic to a large degree. It's a story that's been told many times before, but it's really all about the setting and what the director does with that setting that separates it from all the others that have come before. So this is set within the world of kind of Viking lore. You've got this man who he's destined to be king. He's the son of the king, but then the brother of the king kills the king, and he's forced to go on the run, and one day return to wreak vengeance. That to me is not a particularly original story. I mean, heck, Prince Caspian, for crying out loud, pretty much does the same thing to a certain degree. It is one of those movies where you can say, it's just Prince Caspian, but in Viking times. You know, like people say with Avatar, it's just dances with wolves in Spain. For whatever reason, people haven't done that with this. For some reason, Avatar seems to be an easier target, but that's essentially what this is. But, as with Avatar, that stuff doesn't bother me. I don't care that the story is something I've seen many times before, because actually what Eggers does is he places it within an environment that allows for him to explore the world in a way that we haven't seen before. It's a story about vengeance and how it is a destructive force, but how possibly there is room for it. This is about, a man who has to choose between what he loves and what he hates. You can only have one or the other, or can you? I think by the end of the film, the answer is actually yes, you can only have one. I think ultimately the vengeance is a destructive force that doesn't really reap many benefits. And I think the film does show that to a large degree. It shows it through this character played by Alexander Skarsgard, who's a very stubborn man, ultimately. He's fixated on one thing, and I personally think he could have had a better life if he'd have made different choices. That's my takeaway from it. I think it's one of those films where you can look at there's a certain turning point in the film, or a choice that is laid before his character, where depending on your outlook of life, depending on your reading of it, you could read it as him having his cake and eating it. He got the best of both worlds. He got to choose both love and hate. I personally, that's not my takeaway from it, but I do understand, I think, how somebody might read that from the choices that he makes. And it's because of that, it's because of things like that make this a really compelling drama. It's quite violent. It's visually striking. There's a lot of weird imagery in here because there's visions. There's at one point we have a Valkyrie carrying someone away, and it's just, it gets pretty trippy. You don't know if it's just because they're eating too many mushrooms out in the wild, or whether this is stuff that's actually supposed to be happening as we see it. But it just makes the film very visually interesting. It keeps me engaged in a way that telling this story in a more kind of straightforward way wouldn't really grab me as much. Alexander Skarsgard is great in this. He's really a feral animal in this at times. It just comes off as a beast, both physically and mentally, emotionally. He's just all rage. This is just a man who's all rage, who eventually is somewhat tamed by a woman, but not completely. Again, feeding into that theme of love and hate and the choices you have to make. But Anya Taylor-Joy is also great in this. She can pretty much do no wrong at the minute. Everything she seems to touch turns to gold with regards to the movies and TV shows that she's been in. She's a over the New Mutants, I can't think of anything else that she's done that I didn't either at least really like or just flat out love. And Nicole Kidman as well is very good in this. There's certain things with her character that I did see coming. And again, I think that's because it's a story we've seen told multiple times before. That there are certain revelations in this that aren't quite as revelatory as one might think. If this is the first time you're seeing this kind of story be told, then yeah, it would probably be quite a revelation. But there's certain things with her character where, yeah, I saw that coming, but the fact that I could see that coming didn't make it any less enjoyable when it happened. And that's because of, one, Nicole Kidman's performance, and two, the way in which it's written and presented. It is a brutal film. It's definitely not for everyone. I wouldn't recommend this to everyone. It's got a bit of a horror vibe to it, you know. It is more of a fantasy kind of tale, but it's definitely got elements of horror to it, so be wary of that going in if that's not your bag. Like I say, it does deal with a lot of what I would describe as pagan kind of ideologies and folklore, but I think in a way that gets to the heart of the human condition, be it a godless version of it. There's a final battle sequence that takes place in this kind of eruption, this volcanic eruption, and I really love the cinematography on it. It's absolutely fantastic. Just a lot of it is played out in silhouettes. We see the silhouettes of our combatants rather than full body detail, because obviously you got the flames of the volcano behind them. It looks incredible. It's a really great job from the cinematographer, and it kind of reminded me of an episode of Batman the Animated Series. There's an episode of Batman the Animated Series called Day of the Samurai, in which Batman goes up against this ninja in a very similar setting, and a lot of that is, you see it in silhouette, and it just, yeah, I felt like Eggers had seen that and thought, I'm going to put that on screen, but in a Norse kind of medieval fashion. But yeah, either way, it works. It's stunning. So Northman for me is undoubtedly one of the best films of 2022 that I've seen, at any rate. There are still quite a few on my list that I need to catch up on, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is sitting in my top 10 by the time I finalise my 2022 list. If you haven't seen it, check it out. If you have seen it, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this review, and until next time, cracking.